As you can see, I'm out of the studio again for this film, here on the Sussex coast. We thought you might appreciate another change of scenery. There's a bit of a link between being here by the sea and the subject matter of this particular film. We're going to look at the difference between emotion and feeling, which we separate into two different categories for the practical purpose of helping anyone to change their life. Basically, emotional flare-ups disrupt, whereas feelings are healthy. The words emotion and feeling are commonly used interchangeably to describe the same thing, yet this diverse group of reactions, moods, sentiments or expressions should be placed into two distinct categories, at least for the purpose of helping someone who wants to change their psychology or behaviour. We define emotion as something lesser, limiting and negative. By contrast, our definition of feeling is something bigger, embracing and positive. Emotion is fraught with difficulty, likely to cause confusion and upset. Therefore, understanding what's going on with these mood swings is imperative. We're definitely not saying that all emotions, as different from feelings, are bad, because they're not. It's likely that 6 basic emotions were pre-cultural, in other words, free from social influence. I'm talking about anger, fear, disgust, pleasure, surprise and sadness. In their most simple form, these each offered evolutionary advantages, helping to keep us safe. Disgust, for example, would have signified to others an individual's strong dislike at eating a poisonous or distasteful food, deterring copycat behaviour, which might have proved potentially debilitating or even fatal. Recognition of facial expressions indicating pleasure likewise would have shown it was okay to eat something which tasted good. These basic emotions, coming from the limbic system, are rapid, prompting an instantaneous response, which is another clear evolutionary advantage. Memory helps us remember these warnings, also helpful. Nowadays, however, these 6 basic emotions have developed a level of complexity way beyond their simple origins, and so are rarely useful. Occasionally, at times of imminent physical danger, a primary or instinctive urge of fear can obviously be a good thing, as it can help keep us safe. But for most of us, these occurrences are thankfully rare. More generally, emotions are unhelpful and unhealthy. They'll just keep you stuck, messed up and possibly resentful. Feelings, on the other hand, will enhance your experience of life. The sophisticated range of unhealthy emotions that you see today arose when society developed. As social interactions became more complex, going far beyond the basics for physical survival, there were various psychological struggles. To fit in, be liked, to gain favour, and perhaps achieve power. Insecurity erupted as a consequence of there being winners and losers. This was immediately followed by a range of techniques to cope with the emotional fear and disappointment, not least the avoidance syndrome of making excuses and blaming someone or something else, etc. Emotions such as envy, hatred, self-pity and arrogance are typical examples of these more convoluted emotions. They're much longer lasting than the original basic fleeting emotions that initially aided our survival. And because these modern emotions persist, they can easily tie us up in knots. Avoidance doesn't help, making a bad situation worse. The majority of people quickly accumulate more baggage than you find in the arrival hall of a busy international airport. Of course, there are psychotherapists and counsellors to help you understand your problems. Only they're usually as screwed up as you. And anyway, their answers are shallow. There's a worrying trend that these therapists are justifying people's poor behaviour, offering them a so-called medical excuse for being substandard or a shit. Normal psychological behaviour is increasingly being medicalised, labelled, condoned, which solves absolutely nothing, helping no one. We need solutions, improvement, not more excuses. We now need to get to grips with what happens when 2 of the issues we've looked at combine. We've seen the brain has evolved, and its function includes trying to keep us safe from danger by sending out a strong emotional warning. And you've also hopefully understood that social conditioning and years of using avoidance mechanisms to minimise anxiety, disappointment and emotional pain has created a tangled defence strategy. So there's neurological functioning from the past and learnt habit. The effects of this combination can suddenly kick in when you attempt healthy risk-taking, daring to go beyond your limitations, venturing into new territory. But then you hit a difficult point. Self-doubt will probably kick in, and you'll find justifications to back out of your new endeavour. You'll convince yourself that you're right in doing a U-turn. The big dream is abandoned. It's like a shark attack from the classic 1975 film Jaws, which has the famous tagline, "Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, the shark suddenly attacks, bites off your legs, and it's game over." Another way of expressing the same thing is that your ugly head suddenly rears up, seemingly out of nowhere. It's Robert Louis Stevenson's Jekyll and Hyde, two opposite parts of the same person. Small-mindedness is wrongly linked with safety. The urge is to retreat back within the known boundaries. It incorporates everything that's previously gone wrong, the sum of all your past fears. The shit hits the fan and you're disabled, immobilised. The shark attack or ugly head is an impulse to hold yourself back from yet another bad situation. Only this instance of risk-taking happens to be a good one. Emotion floods and overpowers rational thought, causing confusion, turmoil. It's the opposite of be just and fear not. To really stress the point, you'll choke, telling yourself, "No, I can't." Unchecked, this extreme burst of emotion can and will cripple your dreams. You might think that you're mentally stronger than others and won't be susceptible to such a severe degree, but you'll almost certainly be wrong. It's easy to misjudge just how powerful this emotional onslaught can be when the beast is provoked. A shark attack is a definite danger point during the early and middle stages of attempting to fundamentally change your psychology. Early on in this series of films, we quoted Philip Larkin's famous poem. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they have and add some extra just for you. But, simply speaking, it's emotion that fucks you up. Emotion is your greatest enemy when it comes to developing your human potential. It's what turns rational thought into irrational bumbling, and it'll affect you regardless of a high IQ, instantly reducing you to a fool. You mustn't forget that an emotional shark attack can happen suddenly, at lightning speed. It's an evolutionary thing, an instantaneous response designed to help you survive at moments of real physical danger. But it's a misinterpretation of what's going on at these times, because life and limb isn't actually being threatened. More generally, emotion can gradually gnaw away at your resolve if left untamed. There's your doubt worm as well as the shark, which can wriggle and wriggle around in your brain if you let it. You need to be smart, to understand. Always remember that your brain evolved, it wasn't designed. Don't ignore any unresolved emotional issues. They'll come back to bite you on the arse if you do. Avoidance doesn't work. The past continues to live on through emotional entanglement that lurks below the surface. There's likely to be a hurt child, whether you've acknowledged this or not. And it's disruptive, often at times when you need to be your best. These unresolved hurt child issues, probably complicated by additional emotional pain from your adult years, will imprison and limit you until they're faced and overcome, overshadowing who you could be. Some people more readily display emotional flare-ups, barely thinking before letting rip and dumping. Others have learnt to stuff their emotions down, which doesn't actually resolve anything. So the manifestations of emotion can take many forms or shapes. Frustration, manipulation of others, excessive preoccupation with control are just a few indicators. Emotion lowers situation awareness, getting in the way of, reducing a clear understanding of what's going on around you. This is true on different levels, from your immediate locality to a worldwide scale. Perception and the processing of information is distorted. Appreciation and accuracy are reduced, often severely, impacting on your ability to face reality and do something constructively about it. Emotion messes up attention, perception, memory, judgment, and decision making. Be extremely wary of yourself when emotion is flooding over you. Understand that it will influence, distort your thinking when the deluge is happening, rendering it suspect or unreliable. Don't make or act upon any decisions at such a time, even if your brain is urging you to do so. Flight is only necessary for safety when there's clear and present physical danger. Sleep on it. Question what has happened. Know your brain, appreciating our evolutionary past, but also knowing that now is now. Don't be a coward and run. On a basic level, learn the difference between emotion and feeling, starting with our straightforward definition that I gave you at the beginning of this film. Build a picture of what happens to people in terms of social conditioning, massively complicated by the strategy of avoidance. See the psychology of selfishness for what it is, somewhat backward and stuck within the limitations of its primitive merry-go-round. See the consequences of all of this. Recognise the patterns of emotional disruption, identifying any triggers that set you off. Catch it as early as possible, stopping the excesses of ugly head or a shark attack. Understanding is the key to better self-control. Do this over and over, knowing that a lot of practice is necessary to train your brain into making new habits. Remember that you have freedom of choice. It's up to you how you live your life. Success won't come easily. There'll be struggle, but you can eventually win through. When you're starting to get the hang of it, keep improving and improving. AC/DC sang, "It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll." The brain is the brain. Remember, neurons that fire together, wire together, and neurons that fire apart, wire apart. I've said very little about feeling, simply because emotion is the problem that you've got to tackle. Feeling happens as an appropriate response to reality. And by reality, we mean the actual situation, not the misunderstood or distorted mental perception. A simplistic but nevertheless useful way of visualising the difference between emotion and feeling is to think of a pipeline transporting the uninterrupted flow of water. This is feeling. Now imagine there's been a series of problems causing mini collapses or blockages in the pipeline, restricting the flow of water to a trickle, or perhaps causing surges like whitewater rapids. This disruption is equivalent to emotion, whereas feeling is a natural state of an abundant awareness, love and appreciation for life. In short, feeling brings understanding alive. It makes it more, adding depth. Humility is one expression of feeling, a deep sense of knowing your place as part of the whole. Focusing on your emotion and how you feel is overrated, and we'll be looking at this in a film towards the end of the series. Self-expression has gone too far. It's often little more than self-indulgence, a sign of self-obsession. It's better to focus on thinking, understanding, and putting the consequences of this rational thought into action to make life better for all. I'll be back in the studio for our next film, when we'll be examining another of the 16 key factors: hunger for learning and a zest for life. I'll see you again soon.